Welcome everybody. This is SharePoint Dev Weekly episode. I have no idea.
Very
it's 67.
That's how we're so pro.
We are so pro.
67. Of course,
67. My name is Vesa Juvonen. I'm a principal program manager from the OneDrive SharePoint Dev Platform team, and my co-host in the SharePoint Dev Weekly is who?
My name is Waldek Mastykarz. I am head of product at Rencore, and today with us is a special guest.
Yes,
Yannick.
Yannick.
Introduce yourself.
Thank you. Yes, so my name is Yannick Plenevaux. I'm, let's say, software architect in specialized in Microsoft 365 technologies and software. I founded my own company a bit more than a year ago. I'm still working mainly as a consultant and a software engineer, and also a bit of training, technical training, functional training for end users also. And I've been working more and more in the past few years on the latest technologies like SPFX, Microsoft Graph, etc. And I really enjoy it.
Yeah,
cool.
And you're also a really new MVP, right? So you got your MVP on January 2020.
I have been awarded as an MVP beginning of this month. And, so yes, mainly about my blog articles and my contribution to community, so mainly to the PnP initiative at various parts. Like I worked on the PnP PowerShell of S365 CLI, a bit also on the side score as well.
Yep.
And also have been working on something that has been published in the sample, the Site Design Studio web part that has not evolved in a while, but I really plan to release a new version at some point. I hope to get enough time to focus on it.
Yep. And thank you for being super active. You've been really active for quite a few years, definitely on the open source side of the house and helping with the open source and community initiatives. Now, for you, you said that you started a new company more than a year ago. Time flies actually, because I really thought that it was a while ago, but it's more than a year ago already. So, what if you think about, let's say you were working in a larger company as a consultant, and now a year has passed. What's your learnings around? What are the things you should have known before you start the company? And you didn't, and what would be the practices for anybody else who are thinking of going independent potentially? I know that Waldek is offering, thinking this. No, just kidding.
You're talking about me.
Yeah, but
no. By the way, Matthias, don't worry about it. It's okay. No. Matthias is Waldek's boss.
Or is it?
Or is it? True. Sorry,
I would say that the practical thing, the administrative things are the things that I was not aware at all about, like contents, etc. It's not my job, and but hopefully I have an accountant, and so it was quite smooth for me actually. I think it might be more difficult for some others, but on my side, I basically continued the work that I was already doing as a consultant, and so yeah, just administrative things to doing some invoices, etc. And that part was actually great because I used what my work is all about, using Microsoft Graph, using my calendar, for example, to generate my invoices, etc. So it was kind of funny. And but other than that, yeah, my job was basically the same. I had this luck, so it is great that now I can focus on my job and don't really deal with the fact that there was some I would say direction that are not the ones that I would have taken. That's really the great part of owning my my own business.
Yeah.
So far you didn't have any, let's say, challenges regarding finding engagements, finding the right type of stuff you want to do, finding customers. Like none of that was an issue.
For me, it wasn't, since I already had plans with customers and prospective, etc. And now I would say my main concern is doing what I like to do and not find a job just for the money, I would say. And yeah, hopefully we are in a sector, in an industry that is always looking for people, and especially with the Microsoft and with SharePoint and Office 365 that is booming. Yeah. So yeah, I had that luck so far that I haven't been too concerned about will I find some work. So far, hopefully that is working very well, and
cool.
Even so well that I have now too much work for only myself, and I have now an employee, so it's growing one step after another, and we'll see.
Was it a big thing for did you actually recruit a person to work for you, or is he a freelancer working through you?
Or she?
Or she, absolutely.
He.
Absolutely. In this case,
okay.
But yes, actually, he is an ex-colleague and a good friend of mine. So I knew him. I know what he is doing, what he can do, and hopefully I have a lot of work, and I can give on his plate the work that I don't have the time to work on. And for now, I didn't have to deal with the recruiting matters and all the concerns, etc. But I think that at some point I might face that, and I will have to deal with it, because
I think it's quite typical that the first recruits obviously are based on friends and connections, and the people, because you need to trust the people. But then sooner or later the company grows to a certain size when it gets complicated, and then you need to actually do an open recruitment, and then it's almost like a super risky, because then that's the moment where the false recruits can have a catastrophic impact on a company as well. So
the current status, I would say, income of the company is good enough, but I don't have the funding for recruiting one people with no return for months. So I had to make sure that I get the right guy that I know will generate revenue soon enough.
And the person, so he is just an employee, right? He is not a co-owner or partner or anything like that. He's just an employee.
Not so far, just an employee.
Okay.
Maybe it could change. He would maybe come back and say, hey. But for now he is an employee, and I started really like just a freelancer with my own funding and my own thing so far. We'll see how it goes. I'm not against any kind of evolution.
What about if you think about your going to independent, and you had obviously a good situation where you had your existing customers and connections, and you were able to jump on the other side. Did this open source community work help on any of the visibility, or didn't really matter?
Yes, on some of my work, I'm actually subcontracting for a company my, let's say, visibility has helped in my current review with this subcontracting. So yes, it did help. Yes, of course. of course.
Because and obviously, if you think about the fact that you have one person which you know nothing about, and then you have another person who you can at least see in a GitHub being active and helping other people and all of that, I think it's a no-brainer who you're gonna select.
Yes.
Well, yes and no. I think for the customer, depending on who evaluates it, right? Because a customer, like
well.
if that is a business person, they wouldn't be able to evaluate that in a meaningful way, right? So you would assume that they have an architect or they have somebody technically inclined enough to understand like the meaning that person contributes. So first of all, they know what GitHub is. They know that community lives there. That is a thing nowadays. Because like 3 years back, it wasn't, or more.
True.
Right,
True.
right. Like in the past, if you've been around since the time of .NET 1, I mean, back in the days, we had what was the name? Codeplex at some point.
Yep.
Right, but I mean that even that wasn't as widely adopted as GitHub nowadays.
True.
Right, so these things are meaningful only if you know that they're there, and then you understand how to attach meaning to them.
Yeah. And sure, obviously, getting acknowledgement visibly on these things will help, because then you're able to use that from a marketing channel perspective. But again, comparing to the person who customer knows nothing about, and there's no public record or anything, so getting at least some visibility absolutely always helps. And that's what we're trying to do as Microsoft as well. That's one of the key objectives, for example, for PnP, is try to make sure that people gain value and visibility and acknowledgement for the work what they actually do. And hopefully we are being at least semi-successful out of it. So,
and the promoting you are doing, for example, here in SharePoint Dev Weekly is really helpful. I think I noticed once on Twitter that my blog view counts has boomed after the very first mention in the SharePoint Dev Weekly.
Cool.
So it is really working.
See, Waldek, it works. So.
You're welcome. Yeah, I mean, you're saying it in a way as if I was against it. I wasn't. What are you trying to say?
I know. That was a conversation starter rather than.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the only thing that I can say is yes, it's working. Duh.
Yes. Yeah.
But definitely, it has more impact than just post on social network. And sometimes I see people that has been very active in the community. I know I would say the most famous names in the PnP, for example, but some other have been working for years and even way longer than I am, but I didn't know of. And sometimes just because the matching on the social media was not done. And but with SharePoint Dev Weekly, for example, I get to know some of the people I basically never heard about.
Yeah, that's the kind of a downside of social media as well, because it generates automatically these bubbles where you feel that you're being empowered more and more by the group of people, and that's the bubble, and you have no idea what's outside of the bubble, even though there might be actually similar-minded people and similar kind of people.
But I mean, it's the same thing in real life. Like you know who you know, like you go to events, you go to your events, and if those people are not in your location, well, then you don't know them.
Yep.
Right.
That is
and
true.
then you go to the summit, and then it's like, wow, there are so many new MVPs. I have no idea who they are.
Yes, that's true. That is true. Which
because,
reminded me. Yeah, sorry.
Because like for a while, like if you look at 2007, 2008, like there was only a handful of folks who were MVPs,
That's
and
not
these
a while
folks.
Ago. That was a decade ago. Come on.
Yes, exactly. Well, even more, right? And these folks were like, what they would do, like blogs were on, but weren't. I mean, yeah, some of them had blogs, but the big thing at that time were the like big events and books.
Yep.
So if you were a dev, you would buy a book and you would know the author, and he would be or she would be an MVP, and that was so easy, right?
Yes.
And nowadays, it's way more folks are MVPs. They do many different things, varying from podcast to webcast to stickers to events to running user groups to being online, offline. They're all over the place.
Yep.
It's just like it's almost impossible to know all of them.
True. Well, at least the MVP Summit once a year gives us, let's say, sneak peek for the MVPs, who are the other people who are MVPs. But it doesn't actually. The MVP Summit is a private for MVPs, which is coming on mid-March.
Correct.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
So I need to do some booking of flights at some point because I'm not actually. But that's a separate discussion. Now, Ignite has been, by the way, booked as well. So that's a new thing, at least related from, by the way, from last week. So Ignite is in New Orleans, which was interesting. So it wasn't in Orlando this time. So a completely new location again. So where was it? It was first in Chicago, wasn't it? Chicago was the first one.
First one, I don't know. It wasn't the first one in Vegas?
Was it in Vegas?
So there was a SharePoint conference in Vegas. So I don't know.
That's true, but that's for SharePoint conference. That wasn't Ignite. I think Ignite was in Chicago, then Atlanta, then Orlando, right? Am I missing?
I don't know.
But never mind. There we go. We're getting old. The memory is.
Yeah, there's like too many events, right?
Yes, but I think New Orleans is. I think it's a good one based on. Actually, I was checking the maps just out of curiosity. I'm actually super interested in always when somebody says a location, I will go in the map and I will have a look on the map, the locations. I will get some sort of a view where it is and how to get there and all of that. So, but it seems to be that it's.
You go there by plane. It's in the US. You go there by plane.
Thank you. Yeah, I was having a hard time of finding that. But it seems to be that the conference center is in the downtown of New Orleans as well, right next to the hotel. So it seems to be quite nice setup. Almost like Seattle. Seattle is quite convenient as well because the Seattle Convention Center is in the downtown and there's a lot of hotels around that. So because we used to have tech readies all the time in Seattle, but that's a separate discussion.
That is way back, right? Because nowadays they are on campus, right, or not?
No, they're actually in Seattle. Still. Yeah, Seattle.
There you go.
But they're no longer tech readies. These are internal conferences. They're ready. They're ready conference. They are no longer tech ready. So you don't have to be any more tech savvy. Or what? No, I don't.
Yes, very good.
Badooms. So
there is this joke: a sheep, a drum, and a snake fell to the ground. Badooms.
Okay.
On that bombshell.
Okay. That was a good one.
Yes.
But are you both coming to the MVP Summit, by the way? Just out of curiosity. Still open, still debating?
Still debating on my side. I'm not sure. I plan to come to Ignite at least, and I have a few traveling already planned, so I don't know if MVP Summit will. I will see.
And Waldek doesn't do no comments.
Well, I mean, so I intended to go initially, but it's still like I have my ups and downs with my health, so it looks more now that I won't be going. So no matter how much it sucks, it's just like, first things first.
Yeah, it is what it is. So it's always family first, health, family, and work, and then hobbies. And MVP Summit is almost like hobby. Is it work? I don't know. So
it's not. It's like a reunion.
It's a reunion. Yeah, once a year reunion for a few days. That's true. That is true. Anyway, I will be there most likely, unless there's any unexpected surprises. So, and I'm actually trying to do this. That this would be my first travel through this year. So we'll see if I can actually pull that off. So I'm trying to reduce.
So there was a user group like somewhere in Australia or something. Like, aren't you going there? No.
I have a bad habit, so every now and then I'm getting those requests, obviously, which is fine, and it's always good to ask. There's no harm for asking. But then, if somebody asks me on a weak moment, I might say no, I might say yes, almost like an accident. It's like, okay, fine, I will just come, and then I'm stay. Well, if you say that you'll come, you'll come. You never cancel. Period, because that's just. Would be too horrible. So autumn I was flying way too much. Anyway, that's a separate discussion. Any other things, Yannick, from your side of the house before we go to the articles? Anything what you've been working on recently? You've been working at least on a Microsoft Graph webhooks. That was some articles.
On the series of articles. So it was basically about the way to implement a solution that will staple to Microsoft Graph events. So like adding groups or adding events, updating events, and so it was all started with one little requirement that I had, and actually it was really fast for me, but I then decided to go deeper into it and see how we can implement a more advanced and more probably viable solution. I don't know it's the right word. And so it was I started. It was why I started these blog posts, cutting them in many parts, because you know that I usually write quite long posts, but that one was too big to be in a single post. So I split it in many parts. And the next part will be to actually handle the expiration of the subscription. So basically, a subscription expires for most resources after 3 days. A bit less than 3 days, actually. It's like 3,240 minutes, so 70 hours and a half. It was a bit strange. So yeah, I faced those kind of say issues and findings by exploring it. That's why my post is called Exploring Microsoft Subscription.
And that actually quite nicely touches the discussion which we had before we started the discussion from your perspective as well, that one of the key values of being part of the community and contributing in the open source project and everything is actually to learn new stuff.
Exactly.
So because it actually then you're helping other people to learn, but you learn by writing a blog post, because then you're like, hey, I would like to have this more complete as a story. Let me actually investigate that part and that part and that part.
And so that is exactly like, if I look at myself, it's like oftentimes I think I have it, and then I try to write about it, and it's like, wait a minute, and what if this, and what if that, and then you will find new angles for things, and then like in order for you to be able to explain it to others, you have to first understand it by yourself. True. Unless you say like, so I recall once, like back in the days, there was a guy who would come to speak at a user group here in the Netherlands, and he would say like, so this is it. It works like that. I have no idea why, but this is how it works. Like everybody was like, good presentation. Right? So at least for me, like when I try to write about something, I try to understand how it works, why things are the way they are. And like sometimes you don't know, and it's perfectly fine to say like
that might be hard. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, you can say like, because at times you might touch something for which there are no docs, and especially nowadays, if there are no docs, there's no way for you to grab the code, reflect the code anyway. No, it's like you work against something in a cloud, and you can only say, well, this is it. This is what I know. There is also this part of payload or whatever you want to do. TBD.
And obviously, if you're an MVP, you have channels to request that information potentially from using the different things, but it's not a guarantee that the feature PMs have the time and availability to actually give you the information. Or maybe the question is more complex even for them. So,
or maybe the information you get, you will be not allowed to share it publicly because of reasons. Yeah. Right. So there's also this angle that while you might get some additional insights why things are the way they are, which help you to understand and advise the customers with whom you work, you're not in place to share anything about it because maybe things are still in progress. Maybe there are some limitation boundaries, whatever. So that's also additional angle to keep in mind, that being an MVP, sometimes you know more, but it doesn't mean that you can always share everything because you can't.
Yep.
And I was thinking when writing my blog post, actually, I always, as you said, I write them for myself, doing some discovery, research, etc., and like just I would say, side note, write down what I discover, what I face, etc.
Yeah.
And sometimes after a bit of polishing or something, but I publish the article. But mainly it's based on experiments, research, and some stuff like this. Just not. Yeah, I've seen that there on the web, and I will write a blog on it about it. So it makes no sense to me. It has to be something that, at least for me, it makes sense to go deeper in it. And then.
So how often are you stuck and you land on your own blog afterwards?
Last year I came back like 3 or 4 times on my home blog.
Yep.
And I had also, it's a bit different, but I had also like 3 or 4 posts pending because I made some researches and then get stuck on things that getting harder to solve, etc. So there are some of my articles that I cleaned them up now because some of them are even become obsolete. But there were articles that I never finished because I was stuck and then didn't have the time to go deeper into the research and the fixing, etc. So yeah, so it is.
At least in my case as well, a lot of my personal blog posts are written a decade ago already, which is actually quite horrifying. But I haven't had a time to actually write recently. I'm trying to get back on the online at that one. But a lot of that stuff, when you need to do still today some feature XML investigations and all of that, it pops up still.
You are the only guy, yes.
So. Which is actually kind of sad. So my core skill set is on the farm solutions of SharePoint development. So yeah, outdated. So.
Well, I mean, you've been doing quite a lot of that. So
at some point, yes.
And I mean, not to mention the things with MCM, and you've done that part there too. Yeah. So like you used to know it thoroughly. I don't know if that's still the case now, though. But
pretty much, yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Anyway, that's a separate discussion.
Let's get to articles.
Yes, let's get to the articles. We have roughly 15 minutes. I think you have a hard stop, right, Waldek?
Always.
Double checking yes, you do. So you have a strict schedule. So first of all, we actually wanted to start a recap and reminder on the XM MS600 because with Yannick, we talked about this one also. And obviously, it's building application solutions, Microsoft 365 core services. That doesn't really define what it actually contains, but the skills measured actually gives a good view. So Microsoft Identity handling, graph, SharePoint development, obviously SharePoint framework. So this is not really any farm solution stuff, extending Teams and extending Office. And this one actually, the attached PDF is really good. So it actually has a lot of the details which are getting measured inside of here. So I would encourage people to double check the baseline of identity handling, because even though you would be a SharePoint framework developer, it doesn't mean that you can actually pass the exam. So just word of a warning, the identity might be difficult, or even the graph might be difficult if you come from a SharePoint background. The graph we use in a SharePoint development quite heavily regardless, but maybe the identity, because quite often, especially in SPFX, you don't need to worry about identity, it just works. So
until it doesn't.
Until it doesn't, yeah, that's true.
And then it's like, okay, what went wrong?
Exactly. So, but if you're writing a C# or if you're writing an Azure function which needs to call back to the SharePoint Online and all of that, then all of this stuff is still relevant. So, important stuff. On the SharePoint framework side, if you come from a SharePoint side of the house, I think the baseline is quite understandable. What is the web part extensions, packaging deployment, graph usage, Azure AD application, so Teams tab. Super baseline stuff. If you're a Teams developer, should be relatively basic, understanding webhooks, tabs, messaging extensions, components. But these questions might be surprisingly, like, let's say, not difficult, but don't assume that if you know enough settings, you can just pass the whole exam. So you need to have the baseline. So that's a fair point.
Interesting.
Bit of a guidance. You need to know from all
Everything.
of these areas, something from all of these areas. Maybe one thing to notice. So this is intended to be the foundation, and then on top of this, there is an intention to then in future to do an advanced scenario. So this one will get you the Microsoft 365 Certified Developer Associate, and then on top of that, we're looking into if there's a demand to create specific certifications for Teams and SharePoint Framework and all of that. So whatever that also means in future, now that we're combining more and more the development efforts, but still, so it is what it is.
Cool.
On the news, we didn't have that much news from the Microsoft side this week, but there was one good news from a Office add-in side. So creating single sign-on add-ins for Office has never been easier. So this one basically is that there's a new version of Yarn Generator which will help you to make the single sign-on work more seamlessly with Office add-ins. So if you're using the classic ways of implementing your Office add-in, so create your own web application, you're hosting the Office add-in somewhere, and this one will automate the single sign-on with that. Now, if you're using the SharePoint Framework way of doing Office add-ins, it just works. You don't need to worry about anything. So that's quite nice. Obviously, that's in preview still, so it's not yet out. This one was from not a competing, how would I put it? It's our sibling podcast. Is that the right way of putting that?
Yeah,
like
or just
they're from
the marketing team.
The marketing team. Yes, we are not from marketing, so we don't actually know how to do podcasts or video.
Well, you could argue that developer relations are kind of marketing because it's a public-facing role. So yes, you represent Microsoft in a way. Well, not in a way. You represent Microsoft, period.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. 24/7. That's my life. Now,
nice. Sorry.
Huge. But this one is from Mark Cashman, and this quite nice story related on different customer stories and customer experiences. And there's a quite nice set of different stories from different customers, how they're using Office 365 and Microsoft 365, whatever we'll call that. And obviously the intro zone is being done and recorded in a real studio, not in a Teams. But hey, it's just a different way of doing the stuff. We can't actually fly Yannick and Waldek and me to the Microsoft studios every time we do
every week.
That would be actually not fun.
Well, plus, given the fact that Microsoft last week announced that they want to be carbon negative,
point. Why didn't
this
have
would
that
not help?
available?
This would not help.
That's true. That was, by the way, an awesome announcement. Why didn't we have that one as an article? Microsoft carbon free. So let's actually fix that. Yeah. Okay. So this one, this is actually really cool. Definitely. So regardless, do you believe in a global warming and all of that stuff? People have different opinions and all of that. The facts and are saying what they're saying, and let's not have that discussion. I think it's an awesome thing that Microsoft is taking an example and actually is getting away from being a carbon negative by end of 2030. So awesome. I'm super proud of being.
I didn't read through the article, but does it also include things like travel, like going, like employees
So
going by car, flying,
and
everything?
The idea is that we are paying back the carbon which we generated since 1975. So we're getting, we're kind of subsidizing that back from the existing of the company as well. So, which definitely will reduce the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, which has a positive impact on the nature. So I think it's an awesome thing. So
awesome. So in other words, this is why we are not traveling for every episode.
That's good. That's a good point. Yes, we're being environmental friendly and doing this from home, which isn't kidding. It's actually, I think it was flying to our office in Seattle or in Redmond. I think it's the same carbon dioxide consumption or generation as me driving to a office locally 1 hour there and back the whole year. So flying back and forth, it's just flying is just it causes so much pollution. So
yeah,
but every now and then that's required. Like for MVP Summit, there's a debatable thing: can we do that kind of a networking without flying over, no, you can't. So it's
Yeah.
But choose your flights. I think choose your flights efficiently, or
Yes.
don't fly over for nothing. Now, moving on a different topic. On the next topic, so next SharePoint Saturday San Diego.
It's actually Office 365 Saturday.
Fair point. Absolutely valid statement. And I think more and more these are Office 365 shadow days as well, because for whatever reason, if we call them SharePoint Saturdays, people freak out that, hey, I want to talk about Teams, which is valid. So maybe
or Power Platform.
Or Power Platform.
Or Azure.
Calling it
no, Thursday, I've seen.
Yeah. But in here, if we have a look on quick on the schedule, I think they have multiple tracks. There's a lot of people actually talking 4 tracks, quite nice. Heather Newman is going to have a humans in tech keynote, and a lot of talking on SharePoint in Draft Republic in the end for those who want to have a beer or something else to drink. But quite nice set of sessions, a lot of familiar faces and familiar names. Well, not familiar faces in this one, but still familiar faces behind of the familiar names. Makes sense? Kind of, maybe.
Always.
Okay, and this one is from Appy. And around reporting and deleting orphan SharePoint redirect sites. So this is basically just managing PowerShell, using SharePoint PowerShell to managing these things and cleaning up sites from Albert and Scott. So that's pretty useful. Good example of a not super long blog post, but super useful for those who are looking into how to make X and Y and Z happen. So there's the code, and that's it. Good. This one is from Sébastien Levert from Valo Intranet. So using the force local parameter to debug localizations in SPFX. Yannick, in your case, are you doing localized SPFX solutions?
Yes.
So because a lot of your customers require multiple languages as well. So you're from Belgium. Right?
Yes, I'm from Belgium, but I'm not actually. I'm doing more on that subcontracting company that delivers a product, and so with international customers. So yeah, the product is actually translated in basically all the languages supported by Office 365, I think.
Yeah, and
so
this one basically is the force local and what are you actually force it on, and then you can test and debug stuff. Now, the one thing related on the multilingual experience, the number one thing which hopefully will be fixed quite soon in Office 365, it is a horrible experience to define the chosen language for you as a end user. It's just mind-blowing. How can it be this difficult? But I think we're working on it. There will be a better story on that one sooner or later. So, well, I know that we're working on it, so that's fine. But for now, it's surprisingly difficult to actually define the language which you want to use and see the sites on. So,
but there has been improvement for a few years, or I think, because I remember, for example, with the site design era when they went out, there was a lot of, I would say, inconsistency between the user language and then the language of the site design. And, but I've seen it improved recently.
Yep. So. Yep. Now I'm watching the clock. We're running out of time in a second. Akash has a nice, the following is actually kind of interesting. Add a SharePoint sites to Teams personal app. So the story around that one from Akash, how to make that happen. The next one, also a new one, is around, surprise, SharePoint Framework 1.10, building Microsoft Teams personal app from Nandip. And then a third one is around, hey, create Microsoft Teams app. How easy can it be? Plus, this is from a slightly different perspective from Robert, but has kind of a, if you do a classic experience or implementation versus SPFX, what does that actually mean? What kind of extensibility? Slightly more conceptual. The Akash and Nandip is more on, this is the steps, how to make things happen. So, and what does that actually mean? Wartaman had a really good blog post related actually on that one as well, creating Microsoft Teams manifest.
Even more teams, yes.
Powered by SPFX. So a really good point. And I think we got this one updated. So we got, I merged his submission on that one. So we got the what do you actually need to have as the manifest definition. And this one is the trick part in here to make your SPFX solution available as a personal app if you create your manifest manually. So important thing to note. And then from the Angry Italian, that's by the way a joke for those who haven't heard about this one before. He's not angry. He's a really good guy, but he likes that.
He focuses. He concentrates. Right? It's a serious stuff.
Yes.
Serious stuff.
So Paolo has a good blog video related on Presence API and Microsoft Graph. So how do they work, and then examples on how to use that and all of that. So really cool stuff as well. Good. We have 2 minutes before Waldek has a hard stop to a customer meeting or whatever. What are you going to do this week? Any note points, things on your side? Either one.
Yannick, go. You are our guest.
So yes, this week will be on a regular work week with working on my subcontracting and developing SPFX and Microsoft Graph. And we have a release upcoming quite soon, so it will be a lot of things to polish. And I think that's all. And I hope to get time in the evening or next weekend to finish my part 3 on my blog series.
On the Graph webhooks. Yep. Makes perfect sense. On my side, I'm enjoying a silent Monday evening because it's a Martin Luther. Not Martin. Come on.
Yes.
It's Martin Luther King's Day in US, and so it's a public holiday. So it's gonna be a free evening. I get to do whatever I want to do. So I will be working.
And what will you do?
Well, I'm actually recording in my plans as additional guidance on Teams development. We are really enjoying now the let's say the thinking with Teams dev and engineering on the messaging. So we're working towards that one, and then we're gonna do a re-recording of all of the tutorials, including the Better Teams tutorials during this week. So that's the intention.
That is nice.
So let's see, because we need to get them up to date again. I think they're from 2018. What about you, Waldek?
We have still some cool work. So recently we got some additional ideas how we could improve the CLI to work across platforms, systems, and whatnot. And just this weekend, we released a new version that, I don't know if you use the Azure CLI, you might know about the ability to filter the objects that you get using James Path queries. So we have that now in CLI as well. We improved the auto-complete because originally it was painfully slow because basically every single time you wanted to do a tab, we would load CLI in the background, the whole thing, to find the command. So now we put that aside so that whenever you press a tab, we only load the commands and
Makes
not
sense.
the whole thing. So we improved that a lot. And then there are some other things that we work on as well. So like, for example, the ability to, when you use CLI, for example, in a CI/CD setup, that you can use managed identity to authenticate. So there is no need for you to use credentials, store secret, like none of that. Just be able to use whatever identity you already have and use that to authenticate. So we have ideas like this and even more, not to mention more commands, more everything that we're working on. And one that is particularly interesting is that, like, in somewhere beginning 2018, we came across the fact that when you use CLI in PowerShell, you don't get completion of commands because PowerShell has its own way of doing things. When you build a commandlet, you get it for free. Whenever you use something else like .NET, CLI, Azure CLI, you don't get it at all because these things have to implement it by themselves. And there is a specific way how to do it in PowerShell. So back then, we identified the gap, we put issue out there, and there was really no response to it. So like, okay, well, if nobody requests that, then we will not spend any time on that. Just the other week, we ran survey asking, so which shell do you use when you use CLI? Majority PowerShell was like, oh, okay, that's something we need to address immediately.
That's true. But you got quite a lot of survey answers on that one. So thank you everybody for answering on that one. So because those things do actually impact so significantly on where we want to spend time in the open source project. So knowing where people actually use these things, and thank you everybody for being active. But I think that's it for now. We're slightly on top of the hour or expected time. So thank you, Yannick. hopefully your own business will keep on growing and growing and growing, and everything goes fine with that. And thank you for having us, joining us, and telling your story related on going independent, and also you've been so active on the community side, so it's good to actually get you on the call.
I will keep doing. Definitely, it's kind of addictive for me. So
excellent.
That's a great ending. So thank you, Waldek. Thank you, Yannick. We'll be back today SharePoint Dev Weekly next week.
Yes.
Next week. Yes. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Cheers.